and welcome to FPL Mate, your best mate for fantasy Premier League content. My name is Dan, and today we are going to do the final update around all of the press conferences and the much needed information about Erling Haaland ahead of Game Week 17. The time is currently 6 AM, so guys, if you wouldn't mind dropping a like, I wanted to make sure I did an all-nighter tonight to make sure we get this video up for you for the morning, so everyone gets a chance to digest the information, but I am super tired, so all support is appreciated. Let's get started. Okay, starting off with the press conferences, and I should say that not all teams have had press conferences at time of recording. So what I've done is I've gone through all of the manager comments from European fixtures. We've looked at training photos. We've looked at insider information to try and make sure we still get some decent information out for you guys. And we'll update all of the press conferences in the deadline stream this evening. Right, first of all, Arsenal. There's been no press conferences, but Martinelli was out with illness on Tuesday in their Champions League game. El Nene also picked up a hamstring injury, but that's probably not going to affect FPL too much. For Aston Villa, Douglas Luiz and Digne are both suspended, so that is going to impact Villa a little bit with those crucial players being out. Bailey is apparently completely tired. That's what he was last game week. That's why he came off so early in that game. He was also missing from the Thursday night European squad as well, so one to keep an eye on there. I'm not sure if Bailey is actually going to be available or not for this game week. For Bournemouth, Traore should be back after his illness, but Aarons looks unlikely to be fit. And finally here, Brentford, Collins has been pictured training, so he could be a much needed boost for Brentford, but Mbeumo is still out along with many other players. So Brentford are missing a few players at the moment, and yeah, I'm not sure if I fancy their chances against Aston Villa, to be honest. For Brighton, Mitoma is apparently going to have his minutes managed. Now, he played 90 minutes in Europe, and De Zerbi did pick out a couple of players, such as Mitoma, Bonanotte as well, saying kind of, it's going to be difficult to play these players with so many games coming up. So I do think that there's a good chance Mitoma could see limited minutes in the game against Arsenal. Lewis Dunk was also picked out as a player who played, obviously, a little bit at the weekend, played midweek. His minutes might be managed going forward as well. So this is going to be a good opportunity for Arsenal to play against the Brighton team that pretty much went full strength in the midweek fixture, and they are obviously dealing with some issues with the minutes that their players are having. So could be heavy rotation for Brighton and a good opportunity for Arsenal. For Burnley, Koleosho, he could be out for the rest of the season. He's going to be out for a very long time. Ramsey's going to have a late assessment, and Taylor is unfortunately suspended after a 5th yellow card, so bad news for the bench option there. For Chelsea, James is out for 3 months with a hamstring injury, so he's a definite sell. Gusto, Lavia and Nkunku, however, are in full training, so are they going to be available? Well, rumour has it that Nkunku is finally going to get his debut this game week. Is he going to be starting? Is he going to be on the bench? I'm not exactly sure, but we are probably going to see Nkunku finally for Chelsea. For Crystal Palace, Johnston, Lerma and Edouard have picked up injuries, and Ayew is also suspended due to yellow cards. For Everton, Coleman and Young will be out for Game Week 17. Mikalenko apparently has a minor issue as well, but the hope is that he will be okay. But just one to keep an eye on there as well. Branthwaite and Gay are suspended, so they're not going to be available. For Fulham, Ream, he is going to be out for a few game weeks, including Game Week 17. Willian did train on Thursday, but again, he might be a little bit touch and go for this game week. Diop, however, could make the bench. Now for Liverpool, there was no press conference, but we did see Salah, Diaz, Tsimikas and Darwin and many other first choice players rested for Liverpool. Of course, Cody Gakpo did start in that game, so you would imagine it's going to be Salah, Diaz, Darwin as the starting 3 forwards for Liverpool. Though I should say that Darwin did play 30 minutes sort of at the end of the game. The others got a complete rest. Darwin did play a few minutes at the end of that game, so I do wonder if Darwin is maybe going to be the first guy to be substituted off in that Manchester United game, but I would be confident about him starting at least. For Luton, Potts is still out. Nakamba is suspended due to 5 yellow cards, and there's a couple of other players who could be back, but probably not. So for Man City, Erling Haaland did not return to training yesterday as he was kind of expected to. I'm going to go into more detail on that one very, very shortly, but we'll whiz through apart from that. But don't worry, we'll come back to Haaland. Doku, he is not expected to be fully fit quite yet either. Hopefully we'll get an update from Pep today. For Manchester United, Shaw and Maguire picked up injuries in the UCL. That was bad news for them. It doesn't look too good for Shaw and Maguire. I don't think either of them will be playing in game Game Week 17, but again, one to have a look at later when we get press conferences. Martial and Rashford have also been ill, and that's why they missed the Champions League game. I imagine they'll probably be back, though. For Newcastle, Gordon apparently has a hamstring issue. Yeah, he felt something in his hamstring, but he could sort of play on, but not to the full intensity. I wonder if the amount of game time has finally caught up with Gordon, and we might see him start to get a slightly more reduced minutes, with Newcastle seeing more of their players return from injury. Wilson played 90 minutes midweek as well, so that probably leaves the door open for Isak to start this game. But Wilson could play, Isak could play on the left with Gordon maybe dropping out. There could be a bit of a mix and match here, but I think Isak's chances of playing are very good. And an interesting one here, Dan Burn is actually back as well. So Dan Burn played some minutes in the Champions League. Could he be playing at left back with Livramento on the right since Trippier is suspended? That could happen there. Or is Burn going to take Lascelles' place in the centre-back position? Definitely something could happen there. So, yeah, let's see what happens with Dan Burn. But he could be back in the team for Game Week 17. For Nottingham Forest, Awani still out with his groin injury. Aurier and Murillo, they're going to have late assessments. For Sheffield United, Baldock, McBurney, Norwood, and I put McBurney down again. Yeah, they're all back, basically. Brewster and Norrington Davies are on grass, but not expected to play. And Robertson is suspended there. For Spurs, Lo Celso, he has a muscle injury. He's going to be out for at least Game Week 17. So I would imagine it will be Kulusevski, Son, Richarlison, and Johnson all playing in this Game Week 17 fixture. And there's going to be no new returnees for Spurs just yet. Maybe some around the corner. For West Ham, Areola, he's been in full training and he was also on the bench in the Europa League game. So Areola is back and available. Whether he comes straight back into the team, however, I'm not 100% sure. Apparently, illness is also affecting the West Ham squad, with a few players being missing in and out with that illness situation. And for Wolves, Aït-Nouri has been in full training all week, and the manager is hopeful about him playing, getting some game time this game week. So good news for Aït-Nouri owners. Neto, he could be back by game week 18, but still not quite ready for game week 17. And Johnny Otto, he is not in contention due to internal disciplinary reasons. Who knows how long that could go on for, but yeah, forget about him, basically. So some of you guys may have seen me post this already on Twitter or on Reddit, but if you didn't see it, this is what I figured out about Erling Haaland, because Pep Guardiola did say that Haaland was expected back at the club on Thursday, where he was going to be either in training or assessed or something like that to try and figure out whether he's going to be available for Saturday. And things haven't quite gone the way we expected to them there. So what happened? Haaland, he was pictured a few times in Marbella in Spain this week. You can see it in image 1. That was one of the images where he was pictured there. Haaland then posted a selfie on his Instagram stories at 4 p.m. on Thursday, and that's UK time. That's in image 2. And you can see, guys, at the back of the image of the selfie that Haaland took on Instagram, there is a logo for a VIA partner, Airplane Maintenance. It is in the background there. So presumably, since there's an airplane maintenance logo in the background, he was at an airport. Now, Avia partner, they do not operate in the UK, but they do operate at Malaga Airport, which is the nearest airport to Marbella. So presumably, Haaland was still in Spain at 4 p.m. on the Thursday. Now, a private jet from Malaga to Manchester departed shortly after the selfie was taken. This flight arrived back at Manchester at 7:15 UK time. So Haaland has missed his training or assessment on Thursday. Haaland will now have a maximum of one full training session on Friday before Man City play on Saturday, and this will also limit Pep's opportunities to give a useful update on Haaland in his press conference tomorrow. Well, today now, I guess, on Friday. So imagine that Pep will probably say something along the lines of, we'll see what happens later with Haaland. We've got a training to assess him. We will see, as Pep Guardiola often says. So probably not going to be a very useful bit of information today from Haaland. I can't see us getting too much from Pep Guardiola, but I do think there is a good chance we do get a leak about more information. So stay tuned, specifically for the deadline stream this evening, where if we do get that leak, and I think there's a good chance, then I will share it with you guys, obviously, so you guys all have the best information possible about Erling Haaland. But there is some different scenarios that could play out here that I want to share with you. So in my mind, there are three major scenarios, assuming we don't get anything completely definitive, but we might get some good ideas. So scenario one is that we find out Haaland is likely to play. And the reasons to sell there would be just to free up money, maybe to greatly improve your squad immediately. I can't really see too many reasons, though, to be honest, to sell Haaland if it looks like he's likely to play. But if you want to captain him, definitely keep him. If you have other priority transfers, keep him. You want to roll a transfer, keep him. If we find out Haaland is likely to play. Now, if we don't get any decisive information, we get the "we will see" answer from Pep Guardiola, and we just don't know what to do. There's no good information. I think there's some good reasons to sell still. So if you have a weak bench and you know you can't cover Haaland this game week, then maybe a reason to sell. If you were considering selling him in game week 18 anyway, because of that blank, then again, sell. If you don't own Watkins or Solanke, so if you don't have either of those two players, you want to get one of them into your squad because obviously those are the two big forwards to go for right now. You don't have either, then that's another reason to sell Haaland if you don't have the full information. So there is reasons to sell Haaland if we don't have the full picture. There's still very good reasons to sell there. There's a couple of reasons to keep though. If you have a strong bench, if you're already set up, sorted for game week 18, and if you think he'll be back by game week 19, then those are good reasons to keep him, even if we don't have a full picture of what's going on. But if we find out Haaland is unlikely to play, there's actually a lot of reasons to sell. So if your game week 18 team is anything short of perfect, sell Erling Haaland. There's no reason to keep him if you can actually upgrade your team this week, and it also improves your team next week as well. You're probably going to really benefit from making that sale. If you're considering selling him in 18 anyway, again, sell Haaland. If you want Watkins or Solanke, not even that you need them, if you just want them, then again, sell Haaland this game week. And if you have a good plan to get him back later, another great reason to sell Haaland, particularly if we find out he's unlikely to play. So pretty much, if he's unlikely to play, you're probably going to sell him. The only minor reason why you might keep him is maybe you have a very strong game week 18 team anyway, and it's not really going to affect you selling Haaland. You're not really going to benefit from selling Haaland. But I think for most people, if Haaland is unlikely to play, you're really going to benefit from selling him. And even if we don't get decisive information, I think the majority of FPL managers will benefit from selling him regardless. Now, the one other situation, if you're free hitting in game week 18, I think keep Haaland. Unless we find out he's out for the long term. If he's out for just 1 or 2 game weeks, just keep him. Just keep Haaland sorted. You've got that free hit in game week 18 to cover yourself anyway. I think there's a lot of good reasons to keep him. So if you're free hitting, keep Haaland. Otherwise, if you don't get information, find out it's unlikely to play, if you find yourself fitting into certain of these criterias on screen, then that's going to help aid in your decision. But for most of us, particularly if we don't get any good information, I think it was time to sell Haaland. I'm saying it. I think it's time to do it. Only if he's very likely to play would I be looking to keep Haaland personally. So I spoke about having a plan to get Haaland back. There is 2 actually really nice plans to get Haaland back that I think could work and really alleviate the pressure and actually use this situation to your advantage. So these are really nice plans of kind of turning the situation on its head and making good of this kind of situation. You know, making the best out of a bad situation is often what really defines a good FPL manager. So this is what I've come up with. So first of all, the Haaland hokey cokey. Now, if you own Darwin, Isak, Jackson, or any forward that you don't want to own long term, then this might be the strategy for you. So in game week 17, you sell Haaland for Watkins or Solanke, keeping a bit of money in the bank. In game week 18, you'll enjoy a nice full squad of players. Hopefully, you won't have any blankers in that week. Then in game week 19, you sell that non-long-term forward for Haaland. So what that means is that in game week 17, you've gained Watkins, and in game week 19, you get to keep Watkins, but you sell that player you didn't want to own long term anyway. You sell a Darwin, an Isak, a Jackson, who of course is off to AFCON very soon. You sell these players, you get rid of a bad player, you gain a good player in Watkins or Solanke, and you also get Haaland back into your team. So essentially, rather than spending 2 transfers on bringing Haaland out of your team and then back in again, really you've only spent 1 transfer on doing it because the other transfer that you used has improved your team. So it's a good thing, right? The second one is the AFCON gamble. This is a really interesting one. So this is for if you are willing to go with only 1 premium player in your team for the foreseeable future. And this could cause problems long time later down in the line, but I guess we'll deal with that then. again. But certainly in the short term, this is what you would do. So in Game Week 17, you would sell Haaland for Watkins or Solanke once again, and you can now spread the funds. So this is a real advantage to this strategy. You spread the funds and you can start upgrading other areas of your team, spending that Haaland money, because in the first strategy, you actually need to keep the Haaland money in the bank. In Game Week 18, you enjoy your full Game Week 18 squad, no blankers. Then in Game Week 19, you hide behind the sofa whilst Erling Haaland plays against Everton, because you're still not going to own him by this point. You're not going to sell Salah in Game Week 19, so you are going to have to go about Haaland for this week. But Everton, kind of a tough fixture these days, I guess. Then in Game Week 20, you're going to do a double transfer. You're going to sell a Salah and one of your forwards out for Haaland and a new midfielder. So double transfer in Game Week 20. This means you don't have Salah anymore, but you now have Haaland. And I put an optional one here. You can now hide behind a sofa while Salah plays against Newcastle, because you're not going to have him in your team. So that is a different strategy that a lot of people think that one will work as well. I think these two, if you can go for either of these two strategies, then I think you don't really need to worry about the fact that you're selling Haaland. I think you'll be fine. So we've spoken about Watkins and Solanke a lot as the best two forwards to go for in FPL right now. And they really are. It's basically the situation is, if you have Watkins already, go for Solanke. If you don't have either of these players, then there's maybe some question marks here. So what you can see is their numbers, their stats are actually pretty similar. They're pretty even, really. So when you look at their prices compared, obviously, Watkins almost 2 million more expensive than Solanke. There's no doubt about it. Solanke is better value for money. He really, really is. But Watkins' numbers are slightly better, particularly when you look, and we've done over the past 10 game weeks just to get a more of a form idea here, I guess. But if you look here, you can see Watkins' numbers are slightly better, and he also has that slightly better creativity as well. Watkins also has the benefit of being in a stronger team that will win games, score goals, get points in any fixture, whereas Bournemouth, yes, they're in a good vein of form right now, but are they going to be able to maintain that long term? Not as convinced by that as Watkins. So, if you can afford it, I probably would edge towards Watkins over Solanke. But if you think you can, it will benefit you to save the money and go for someone a bit cheaper, then certainly Solanke is definitely a really, really good option for you as well. So do not discount Solanke at all. He's a great option. Both of these are phenomenal. Both have their advantages. I slightly edge towards Watkins if you do have a choice, but Solanke's great as well. And I think if you do prefer Solanke to Watkins anyway, just go for him. Go with your gut on this one, whatever you prefer. Lots of people thinking about taking a hit this game week. I think it's a good week to take a hit, for a lot of people at least. So here are some different kind of situations we've got here. So lots of top managers will be taking a hit this week. We already know that. Lots already have. Now, if you're struggling to play a full 11 this week, and a lot of people are with all of the injuries and suspensions, then again, another good reason to take a hit, because if you're taking a -4 to get a full playing 11, it's more like a -2 than a -4, because you're gaining the 2 points back immediately just by having a playing player. Now, I wouldn't take multiple hits to take out multiple defenders. I think one hit for one defender, if it really does improve your team, is worthwhile. We'd be looking at Pedro Porro and probably those nailed on Aston Villa defenders, probably first and foremost, before we look at anyone else. And I think that's worth one hit, but if we're talking about bringing in multiple new defenders, the hits are probably not going to be worth it, particularly as defenders typically don't score too many points at the moment. I would take hits if you have players who are likely to not play, not players who only have a small chance of not playing. So what I mean by that is, if you've got like a Matty Cash, for example, or, a Trippier or someone like that, these players who we are pretty confident. With Trippier, we know that he's not going to start. With Cash, we know that there's a very small chance of him actually starting. These are the situations where you would take a hit. Not necessarily to remove that player, but to remove another defender in your team to improve your squad to cover these kind of players. Or you can just take, the likes of Cash straight out your team. And what I wouldn't take a hit for is a player like, I'm not really sure who to say here. I guess a player like Diaby or someone like that who has actually got a good chance of starting this week. Or, maybe Gordon. I know some people think Gordon, he might not play this week, but I still think there's a good chance Gordon does play, therefore wouldn't take a hit to remove that player. So hits for players who, to cover for players who are, you're pretty certain they're not going to play. Not just players who might not play. That's not really worth a hit. And finally, we've got here, if you have a suspended player coming back for next game week, you may not need to take a hit as badly as others. So if you've got injured players like a Luke Shaw, a Reece James, a Maguire, these are easy players to hit out. But if the problems in your team are that you have a Taylor and a Trippier on your bench and, you know, you can't play them this week, remember, any hits you take are only going to benefit you really for this one game week rather than future game weeks, because of the fact that those players are actually going to be back straight away, where many other players will not be back straight away. They'll be back for a long time. So the hit that you take may benefit you in a slightly longer term. So yeah, it's going to be different kind of scenarios for different people. Probably a mixture of everything we've just discussed for you guys. But it's a good week to take a hit, but it doesn't mean you have to. And for certain people, they won't actually need to take a hit at all this week. Quick look at the goalkeepers start order. Yeah, the likes of Edison, Pickford, Sanchez, Neto. These are the kind of goalkeepers I'd be hoping to play. Johnston, Turner, Onana, Flecken. These are the kind of goalkeepers I would try and avoid playing this game week. So whichever goalkeeper combo you have right now, whichever one's higher on this list you see in front of you, that is the one I would go for. I have put Pope's down here, but yeah, of course, that means Dubravka these days. So I guess replace Pope in this diagram with Dubravka, and you've pretty much got your answer there. Finally, let's talk about captains for Game Week 14. You'll notice straight away I put Erling Haaland on screen, but massive caveat here. This is assuming that we think Haaland has got a really good chance of starting, because if Haaland starts in Game Week 17, does he become the best captain all of a sudden? I think there's a good chance that he does become the best captain. I'm not sure. It's certainly between him and Salah. I think Salah is still a fantastic captain against Manchester United. They really do struggle against the bigger teams, Man United. Liverpool at home, we've seen a lot of big teams pump Man United recently, and Salah could be the latest player to benefit from that one, to be honest. But yeah, if Haaland is available, don't rule him out. That's all I'm going to say there. Just make sure you set your vice captain just in case. But yeah, I think Salah is the super obvious captain this week, presuming Haaland. We're not going to get any more information about Haaland, which, yeah, obviously a good chance of that happening. And if you're brave, not sure I would be feeling too brave this week. I think I would try and just go for Salah this week. Just stick the captain's armband on him and relax, because you will be able to relax if you go for Salah as your captain. But if you fancy a bit of stress in your life for whatever reason, I'm not even convinced these players are better captains than Salah, and I don't think their chances of outscoring Salah are actually that high. But Son against Nottingham Forest, it's an away fixture. Forest will park the bus. They have switched back to a 5 at the back, and Son will most likely be playing out wide again, and Richarlison through the centre. So yeah, be aware of that one, but it's an option. And a few people talking about captaining Solanke against Luton. I can see why you would do that. I mean, it's a home game against Luton. Solanke's been in pretty good form. Bournemouth have been in good form. So you can definitely get something out of that. But is he a better captain than Salah? I don't think so. And anyone asking about triple captain, as always, I'm going to be saying, no, I do not recommend a triple captain this game week. Save it for a double game week. There is no benefit from going for this one. Seeing actually a few people saying, oh, do you think we should triple captain Solanke, who plays at home against Luton? 11 players play at home against Luton every other game week. It doesn't mean you should just triple captain them. There will be double game weeks, and there will be great opportunities for our triple captainship in the future. So hold your horses on that one. That's my personal opinion. So we're going to call this video there, guys. Hopefully you did enjoy. If you did, please do drop a like, and it helps supports the channel a lot. Obviously, it's super late / early for me, and yeah, I just wanted to make sure I got this content out for you guys today. We'll be back later for a stream, so make sure you subscribe with notifications on. We'll go through all of the final news and hopefully get that Haaland leak as well. Let's see what happens there. Feel free to check out another video if you want to. Loads of Game Week 17 content on the channel. But until then, aside from that, thank you so much for watching once again, and I'll see you later, mates. Bye-bye.